Hey guys, it's Miss Landecker, and we are going to walk through Module 3. Make sure that you pause this video when you need, take notes, and then it always helps to have another tab open or maybe a Microsoft document so that you can get some work done. So let's go ahead and dive right in. As usual, I'm going to click on Lessons. Okay, and Module 3. Let's see, let's look at my checklist. All right, so let's look at this checklist so that we can see what it is we need to do. Now, a couple things you need to know. Assignment 302 and 307A and B, you do not need to do the work for those because the standards that's addressed in the work has already been met in other assignments. I would encourage you to read the material so that you're familiar with it, but you do not need to complete the work for 302, 307A, or 307B. So that makes this module just a little bit shorter. Okay, so let's see what all it entails. Now 301 is your timeline. You should be used to this by now. Remember that you want to read through these links and take some notes so that you can be prepared to take the 301 timeline quiz. And here's a good reminder to honors students. You need to make sure that you are reading the Scarlet Letter so that you can turn in that material at the end. Remember, if you're not an honors student, you don't need to worry about that. So don't forget, in here you've got these handy dandy little practice things, and then you're going to go to the assessment section, which is right here. You're going to open up 301 and complete that timeline activity. So that's one assignment down. Don't forget, if you took notes while you were reading the links, you can use them to help you complete this activity. I really encourage note taking. I know that we may not want to do it because we're like, oh, it's all online. Why would I have to write anything down? But you'll be glad you did, particularly when you have DBAs or some of these online quizzes. All right, now remember 302, you do not have to do the work. What this lesson goes over are the differences between the literary movements of Romanticism and Transcendentalism. It is important to know these different writing styles, so I would encourage you to come through here and read the different works. If you're a person who likes quotes, and you kind of like, maybe you probably see a lot of them on different social media sites, so this lesson kind of deals with that, and there are some great quotes in here. And if you like Edgar Allan Poe, there's a poem by him in this lesson as well. So there are some good things you can read in here, and you do not have to complete this work. Okay, now let's move right along onto 303. This is probably one of the most, if not the most difficult assignment in this entire semester. 303 is about two very famous authors, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. And they both were transcendentalist writers. So after you go through 302 and learn about transcendentalism, you'll be able to expand a little bit more on what these guys have written. This is a two-part assignment. The first part requires you to read Self-Reliance by Emerson, and then the second part requires you to write a response to Thoreau. So the cool thing is if you click on these pictures, it will take you to information where you can learn more about them. It is important, I believe, that you know kind of who they are. They were both actually really cool and inspiring people. Thoreau inspired a lot of great writers and movers and shakers in our community. And Emerson, I love his work because it's so quotable. There's so many things that he wrote that we find ourselves saying, we don't even know it was him. All right, so let's see. What we're going to do is make sure that we read and answer the questions to Emerson and then respond to Thoreau. And Thoreau, actually, he went to jail, so we're going to learn a little bit more about that. Okay, so remember, part 1 is going to be 5 short answer questions. So what you're going to need to do is read Self-Reliance, and it's this right here. Now when you look at this, you're thinking, okay, this is not the easiest thing in the world to read. It starts off, there is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, and that he must take himself for better, for worse, as his portion. That through the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him but through his toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to him to till. Wow, what a long first sentence. This is just an example of how writing styles have changed, because we know that by modern writing standards that would be far too long. The cool thing about this assignment is that some of these words can be tricky, so if you just click on them, it takes you to the vocabulary glossary that's in our class, and this is also what you'll be quizzed on, so it is smart of you to click on these as you go. Now, if you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this looks really tricky, remember that one thing I really recommend is discussion groups. So let's go ahead and open that up while we're working on 303. I am going to click on module by module help. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to select modules 1 through 4. And I'm going to click on module 3 help. And okay. So actually the nice thing is that I've given you some revised questions for part 1. It will help you if you truly understand these 4 words: integrity, conform, reliance, and consistency, because those are what the questions are going to ask you, and you need to have a good understanding of these vocabulary terms in order to complete the lesson. Now, here are the revised questions. They are no longer or shorter. They are just worded in a different form so that I think it's a little easier to explain. If you look at the questions that they ask you, let's see if I can get back to where the questions are. Take me back. Oh, I know how I get back. Go to self-reliance, go back. Or not. Okay, if I look at the Emerson questions, the first question says, according to the first sentence, what does every person realize at some moment in his or her education? Here's what you should not do. Do not go to self-reliance and say, oh, here it is. He realizes all this stuff right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy and paste that because that's my answer. That does not tell your teacher what it is you truly understand. This tells your teacher that you can find something, but not that you understand it. And remember, we're at a point in your education where we want to make sure that you understand and can re-explain your thoughts in written words. So that's why I really would recommend that you use these revised questions, because it asks you what to do. It even says here, instead of saying, what did he say was the first thing, it says, Emerson says this, tell me what it means. So try using these revised questions. After you do that and you work on those questions, what you're going to need to do is part B of this assignment. Part B involves reading civil disobedience and then writing a letter to the editor. So let's go ahead and open up civil disobedience. You can see that it's not actually that long. The cool thing about this is that Thoreau wrote this after he spent the night in jail, and he spent the night in jail because he didn't pay his taxes, and he didn't pay his taxes because he didn't want to fund slavery. So if you kind of think about his mindset during that time, it'll help you understand this a little bit better. And what he talks about here is he says the government is best which governs least. So you want to think about what that's saying, and then you're going to write a letter to the editor about whether or not you agree with him. If you go to discussion groups, it will ask you some questions, okay? It will give you a layout. This gives you kind of a template you can use to write your letter to the editor so that you have 4 strong paragraphs. It gives you some reasons why you might agree or disagree, and then it gives you a sample. So use discussion groups when you work your way through part 2 of 303. It'll come in very handy. Okay, let's move right along. Oh, and then here's the rubric for this. It tells you letter is 350 words or less. I don't really care about that. I really just want you to be informative, persuasive, and accurate. Okay, so please don't worry about this word count thing. Okay, so 304, this is also a two-part assignment. And what you're going to do is, for part one, you are going to research the life of Frederick Douglass. So let's open that up in a background tab. Close some of these other tabs out. Okay, there is more about Frederick Douglass in these links. And let's see here. After you've done with that, you are going to read about his personal life. It's an excerpt from the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, where he talks about a really critical incident in his growing up. If you open it up here, you'll see that this is sort of where he talks about when he came into contact with Mr. Covey. So make sure that you read over that, take notes as you go, and then when you're finished. Oh, and one more cool thing I want to show you guys. If you have a smartphone, you can scan these and read it on your phone just in case you need to. And then also make sure you look for these because sometimes they pop up exam reviews. Okay. So you will take that quiz on the battle with Mr. Covey. So you're going to go to assessments and do that. Part B is a discussion groups response. So what you're going to do is go to discussion groups. Remember, we did this for 202A. You're going to open up 304B. You are going to read the question that your teacher presented, and you are going to find what another student said and give a response. Make sure you answer in 3 to 4 sentences, and then give the name of the student that you responded to. Then you're going to copy your response, and you are going to go into assessments and turn it in for 304B. All right, let's keep going. 305 has to deal with poetry. You are going to read these 2 poems and then respond to the questions. After that, you are going to write your own poem. Now, there's also really wonderful help for this in discussion groups. So don't forget to go to module by module help, open up module 3, scroll down, and 305. There are hints for the questions in part 1, and part 2, it gives you some sample poems to look at that other students have written. Don't let the poem thing freak you out. It only needs to be at least 4 lines long. And there are some good directions here in the lesson as well. Okay, so moving on. 306 is all about Moby Dick, which is a very famous novel. You're going to read about Herman Melville, the author. There are questions that go along with this. Have them open, and then you get to watch the video. So as you watch the video, answer the questions. When you're done with that, you are going to do part 2 of the lesson, where you interview one of the characters from the novel. So you are going to either interview Ishmael, Ahab, or Melville. You create a list of 5 interview questions. Make sure they're not yes or no questions or one-word responses. And then you're going to turn in those 5 questions with your work. So make sure that you do the 10 Moby Dick questions based on the video, the 5 questions you would ask as an interviewer. You can include web art, but if you can't, I don't want you to worry about it. And then turn it all in as one file for 306 Moby Dick. Okay, remember 307 you don't have to do, but I would encourage you to come through here and read about Edgar Allan Poe and read this story because it is a wonderful one. And then 308 is going to be your vocab quiz. So you're going to look through your glossary. Don't forget there are Quizlets to help with those vocab words in discussion groups. Lastly, 309 is your module evaluation. So all those notes that you took, put them to use. Take the 309 review. And remember, there is no DBA for module 3. So once you finish this, go right into module 4. All right, that was Module 3 in 15 minutes. Congratulations!